Mm-hmm.
Good morning, everyone. Let me pull up my notes here. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today on this webinar, where we are talking about the GET program and the DreamAhead and the options that are available to GET account owners. We're here to talk about these options and to open it up as well for questions and answers. My name is Angie Furubotten-LaRosee, and I'm a certified financial planner, but I'm also a parent of 2 high school students, and we also own GET accounts. So speaking for myself, I had a lot of questions about these options, and even with my financial background, I felt like I needed some guidance. So I spent some time on the phone with GET a couple weeks ago and got my questions answered, but I just thought that I figured there were other parents and families out there that were in similar situation that also wanted to get some questions answered. So I'm happy to present that our guests are joining us today are Jackie Ferrado. She's the Community Relations Manager for the Washington College Savings Plan, which is both GET and DreamAhead. And Diana Hurley, who is the GET Contact Center Manager, who's getting all these calls, I imagine. I'd like to welcome them and thank them very much for joining us this morning on this webinar. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay, let's see. I'm just going to check. I've got lots of windows open here. So, okay, we've got 10 attendees. I think that's probably almost everybody. So again, I'm Angie Furubotten-LaRosee, and we're joined by Jackie Ferrado and Diana Hurley, who are both with the GET and DreamAhead programs. I wanted to kind of start this off today by letting I guess, Jackie, go over a little bit of the options that are available to families. We've been receiving emails and things in the mail with the options and the details there. Would you mind just kind of reiterating what we've already kind of learned about?
Sure. Yeah. So I too am a GET account owner, grandparent with 2 little ones that we have GET accounts for. So I am getting those letters too. And we want to thank you all for being patient about all of this and for asking the questions that you have, and certainly for joining us today, so that gives us a chance to help you through the question part of this and hopefully not get everybody tied up in the phone queue. I'm sure Diana's team would appreciate that as well. So as you know from the letters, the legislature had passed Senate Bill 6087, which was taking some of that reserve amount. If you remember correctly in some of the details, the funded status of the GET program grew when there was the tuition reduction in 2015. And so some of the legislatures had found some interest and wanted to pursue benefits or options for existing GET account owners to take some of that reserve amount and use that as incentives to transfer their money to DreamAhead, the new 529 college investment plan, because there was a growing number of people that we were hearing about as well that were saying that they had an interest in that type of plan. And so we're very fortunate that we now have DreamAhead in the state of Washington and have more options for people to choose from. So as the legislature kind of explored that and the beginning of that program, the incentive to give people those options came out in 6087. But as you kind of might recall too through some of the details in the letter, there is also an incentive for those people who choose to stay in the GET program. And so Diana and I are gonna kind of open it up for the kinds of questions that you have today. Diana's team especially has been fielding all these calls and emails, and I've been out on the road talking to parents, and I think that we can help you understand a little bit more, just because verbally it certainly helps to talk through maybe what those options might look like for you. But our only caution too will be that we can't be account specific, certainly because we can't go over every single person's specific account situation, but we are hopeful that we're going to be able to give you some samples or examples and certainly some tips and tools that will help you look at your accounts individually and then make some decisions about what might be best for you to do. So I think from that, Diana, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered everything very well. I'm just excited to be here to help our customers kind of maneuver through these changes and make the decision that fits them the best.
Great.
Fantastic. So I think what I had hoped is that people could either type their questions into the Q&A part of the webinar. There should be, if you mouse over towards the bottom of your window, your Zoom window, there's tools that are available to you. You can type in questions into the Q&A, or I can try to unmute everybody. And if you're willing to just ask your questions live, that's probably just as easy as anything. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. And you can always mute yourself as well. Again, if you mouse over towards the bottom of your Zoom screen, your tools pop up or appear, and you can always mute yourself back up. So the floor is open to questions. Please ask away. I have questions if we need to get the ball rolling.
Okay.
One thing that I could do is kind of go over the 3 phases of the incentives, kind of as a general, if you'd like. That might be helpful for people listening. So there are 3 different phases to the incentive for you know, the different changes with the program. The first phase is any customer who would like to do a rollover to the DreamAhead program has the option to do that. And if for any units that they've purchased prior to June 30th, 2015, they will receive a unit cash value of $143 per unit. So what we'll do is the customer would log into their Get account online, click on the DreamAhead tab, and select the account that they would like to do a rollover for. If you have multiple accounts, you would have to do one rollover at a time. And once you select your first account, it'll take you into the DreamAhead page, where once there, it will have you register for DreamAhead and follow the steps to do your rollover. It's a pretty easy process, but you will have to know one tool. One tip would be to know kind of what your plan is once you before doing the rollover, because you'll have to choose your investment options over there. They have a variety of options that you can choose from, some that are money market options, low risk, and some that are a little bit riskier that you'll have to manage kind of on your own. Once you get it submitted, we are estimating it's going to take up to 7 weeks to get that rollover processed. We are working on some tools to get those done even quicker. It looks like our IT department did do some improvements to that process that's helping with that. So just to kind of give you a heads up there. The other phase, once the rollover, so you have until September 12th to get your rollover submitted in order to receive the incentive. Once all of those rollovers are processed, we will then go through the second phase, which looks at everybody who has units purchased before June 30th, 2015 again. If their average unit price is higher than $117.82, then we will add additional units to your account. And basically what that's doing is essentially lowering your unit price for those who purchased at the higher rates, at the $151.18, the $152. So it's kind of readjusting that, because right now our unit price is so much lower at $113. So it's kind of giving them additional units on their account to help make up for part of that. Once that phase is done, then the third phase is anyone remaining in the program. If our funded status is higher than 125%, then we will be adding additional units to our customers' accounts. Again, those are for payments through June 30th, 2015. You could end up with an additional 15% units added to the account. Phase 3 is not a guarantee. It's all dependent on our funded status. Once the first 2 phases are done, if we're funded higher than that 125%, you could end up with 1 unit. You could end up with, you know, another 15% of your total units that you have in your account. That last phase has to be done no later than March 1st of 2019. So we have to do these in stages. Once the first phase is done, we'll move on to phase 2, and then we'll move on to phase 3.
Okay.
That's kind of a recap of all of those options.
Okay. I had a question kind of relating to what you mentioned there. I had seen something in a Facebook post where someone, the way that they wrote that question got me thinking that they thought they were getting a 15% return somehow on their GET units, that there was some kind of a 15% return, which you just mentioned something about getting 15% more units, right? So that's not really apples to apples, you know, it's not a return, right?
Right. So if you had 100 units, if you had 100 units in your account, you could end up with 115 units. And depending on when you use those units too, if you're not using them for another 10 years, those additional 15 units that we gave you could be worth even more. It's all dependent on when you would use them. And like I said, that third and final phase is not guaranteed. We won't know until the other 2 phases are done if that actually happens, but it's giving an incentive for those people. It opens it up for those people staying in the program.
Okay. So I do have a couple questions that have come in. Ellie asks, I'm wondering how FAFSA applications are impacted by rolling over to DreamAhead. I can speak to that, but if you would like to, that's okay too.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The FAFSA takes into, it doesn't make any difference as far as the fact that it's still a 529. It's counted as a parent asset. The impact is that now you have more value. You know, and I've kind of evaluated this for myself in for this exact same reason, is what's the impact to FAFSA. And basically, instead of having, you know, let's just say, instead of having $10,000, you're going to have $14,000, right? $14,300, because you've moved it over to DreamAhead and your value is higher because of the incentive. And so you just have more in the 529 that would apply to your FAFSA.
Right. And I would just add to that, you know, the thought process is much bigger than just that simple calculation of an impact, because, you know, the intent of 529 plans, regardless of whether it's GET or DreamAhead or even another state's 529 plan, is to help families save money so that their students are borrowing less. And so, as you pointed out, if money is in a 529 plan and the parent or the student is the owner of that 529 plan, then it's considered a parental asset. And when they're calculating for financial aid, they only calculate up to 5.6% of all parental assets to determine the type and level of financial aid a student would receive. So it's more favorable to have money saved in a 529 plan in terms of what types of financial aid are going to be available for their student. And most of the time, what people are really thinking about is grants and grant type of financial aid, not loan type of financial aid. And so it is more favorable than having money saved elsewhere. But you know, we want people to be encouraged to save in a variety of ways, because all of those together help the student eventually borrow less in the future anyway. So we always want to encourage people to understand that impact, but not to consider it as the one and only thing to, you know, in deciding whether or not to save, period, or a 529 plan versus something else. So we do have some resources on our website that help people kind of understand that FAFSA or that financial aid piece. So we would always suggest people to look at that.
And I would add too that a lot of times it's parental income that has the greatest impact on the FAFSA and your eligibility for financial aid. Like Jackie mentioned, the calculation is just 5.64% of that 529 is going to be applied to your expected family contribution. So it's not a very big hit at all.
Right.
And the fact that you walk away with more dollars to spend toward college is something to factor into your decision.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, and I have a second question here from Lynn. I have a daughter who is 13 entering 8th grade. It seems clear that for kids closer to college, it makes sense to stay in GET. For kids much younger, it's likely that the 529 option is best, or the new DreamAhead. We're in the middle, I think, so guidance would be appreciated. And those are kind of the scenarios that you find people in. It's like they've got an older kid or they've got a younger kid. What do I do?
Do you want me to take that?
I can take that one. You know, everybody's situation is very different and they want something different out of their investments. We have a lot of customers who are really close to going to college who think it would be appropriate for them to do the rollover to DreamAhead because let's say they're going this fall, because that's such a big, that incentive piece is a pretty big change from what our current payout value is. So they're opting to do a rollover to DreamAhead. We also have customers who are in the same situation who are deciding to stay with GET because they know what they have purchased here. They know if they have 400 units, they have 4 years of tuition paid for. And even though there's a big incentive to move to DreamAhead, we have some of our participants don't want to have to worry about it. They don't want to have to think about what they're going to have when they're ready to use it. And basically what I mean by that is if you put your money in the DreamAhead program, you have to choose where you're investing your funds. You have to pay attention to it and go on and, you know, and look at how those investments are doing. You could earn money off of the investments, but you could, depending on what your options you choose, there's a possibility of you losing money. And there we have people that just don't even want to think about that. So we have a very wide variety of some people going and some people staying because, you know, they have that guarantee with GET. You know, we have that guarantee that it will match tuition when the student's ready to go to school. When you are in a 529 savings plan, the risk is on the participant. So at GET, we bear the risk of that. So it doesn't matter what the stock market does. If you have the units that you paid for, you will always have those units to use for tuition.
And I would add to one thought process that is to encourage people is that having both types of 529 plans, so having a GET account and having a DreamAhead, or even if it's a 529 plan from another state, having those together are a really good way of diversifying your savings. Because with GET, remembering that the value of the account, as Diana just mentioned too, is that it's keeping up with the tuition growth at the highest price Washington public school. So we know that that's something that we're always going to be certain of. And then the DreamAhead type or the investment type plans that other states have as well will fluctuate in those returns. They'll be up and they'll be down. And so there are going to be times when the rate of return on an investment may be higher than tuition growth would have been. So having a DreamAhead type of account is not a bad idea. Alongside, again, if you also have a GET account, there'll be times when maybe tuition is higher than the rate of return, and you want to have the ability to be pulling from where that investment benefited you the most. So even aside from the incentive, people can be encouraged to open up a DreamAhead account separate from that incentive piece. And an example of that would be maybe a family much like my own. So I've got a 7-year-old grandson and a 2-year-old granddaughter, and they have GET accounts. And there's years before they're going to be going to school. And the expectation is with these tuition increases that pieces that are known, we know what's known for at least this coming academic year, but then there's the unknown. But what I am sure of is that there will be tuition increases, and so I'm comfortable with that. But I also know that by having a DreamAhead account, that might add to what they're going to have available to them. So I would likely opt to open a DreamAhead account, but not tie it to the incentive piece at all. So if Lynn, I think you were the one who asked that question, it may seem a little long in what we've described, but it really becomes like kind of personal too in choosing what you want to do. Some of the things that we have noticed over time is families who have really young children, so like elementary and below, if that's the point that they're starting that savings, having a Get account is a great platform to start with. And then as their children are aging, also, bringing into the mix then that other type of 529 plan, in our case, DreamAhead. But if there's a family who has a high schooler right now, for example, and right now they're saying, oh my gosh, maybe now's the time I need to start saving. And so their student is closer to college in like 4 years, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. They may opt to just start with DreamAhead right away, because that window of time is much tighter than if their kids are much younger than that. I wouldn't say, that anyone choosing either one is going, would necessarily be doing the wrong thing, but we don't necessarily encourage people who have high school students to open, if that's the point that they're starting to save. Get may not be the best option at that point. So I hope, Lynn, that helped kind of like give you some examples of where you might fit in on that. If we can help a little bit more, just let us know. But that's typically the kinds of questions that I get when I'm out on the road, and how I've answered that as well.
So that's a great segue into my question. I understand that Get does not provide financial advice, right?
Correct.
You do assist callers to help make a decision in a different way. Can you kind of speak to how you help them kind of identify their options that might fit best for them?
Well, basically how I just described it is what we do is we look at someone's Get account and we walk them through what it would look like for them specifically. Mm-hmm. If somebody has those 100 units and they're going to roll to DreamAhead, they're going to get the payout value of $143 versus using the units this fall is $106.01. So if you have somebody who's ready to use the units this fall, they might think, well, because I'm going to use them right away, I want the $143. There's no chance for that to increase more for me, because what we do is we look at the value of of your units every August 1st. They get adjusted to match tuition for that year, so that won't increase again until August of next year based on what tuition does. So like I said, we have a lot of customers who are getting ready to use the units this fall that are really thinking that it's the best choice for them to roll over to DreamAhead. But then we also have some of those people that are wanting to stay with Get because they don't have to think about it. They know what they have. If they have 100 units, they have 1 year of tuition paid for, and they don't want to have to worry about making a change and really thinking about what that's going to look like when the student goes to school.
And I would add to that, kind of a good profile of a person who may be saying, yeah, even though I'm going to get 143 per unit if I roll over, but I'm comfortable staying with the 106.01, is maybe somebody who bought those units a long time ago when the unit price was really low, and they've already seen a gain. So they're not in danger of seeing any decreases in that value, right? Somebody, and that is really where personal choice, comfort level, risk tolerance comes into play. I mean, you can look at, like, the considerations are, how many units do I have, and how much did I pay for them, and how much would they be worth today if I needed to use them and I was rolling it to DreamAhead or using the standard Get payout value. And when you look at the math on that, you're going to see, it's a lot more if you roll it over to DreamAhead. But then there's that area where you have to fill in now what feels right to you. So we can't tell somebody what to do, and we can't advise them on what to do. That part of the decision has to be about what makes the most sense to them, what feels right, what are they comfortable with. And in a family, you might even see a parent choose the rollover for one student and not for another. That's not unusual to do. And I personally don't think that anyone, especially when people are seeing gains on their account And once they've made that decision, it wouldn't have been a bad one. You know, you don't want to like have done something and then turn around and go, oh, I wish I hadn't, you know? And so, you know, this window of time really is intended to help people like thoughtfully look at it on paper as it relates to you. You know, you will be different than somebody else's decision because of the risk tolerance or the comfort level or the family dynamic and goals and things like that. So those are the things that we can't really help. You know, we can't use those as factors to tell people what to do. So, yeah.
One of the things that I got helped with was sort of a best and a worst case scenario if I stayed. And
Correct.
that was just some number crunching that they did for me. So that was also helpful. That was in contrast to rolling it over to DreamAhead, which is another calculation. So
Right.
those were some kind of concrete, the number side of things, not, excuse me, not going back to the values and tolerances and things like that, which are very personal that nobody can, you know, identify.
Right. Right.
So that was definitely something I found helpful when I made my call.
And I think what you mentioned there too is like some initial tips. And Diana brought it up at the beginning when she was starting us out with some questions, like, you know, being prepared ahead of time, whether you're going to be calling in to talk to, you know, the team here in our contact center, or checking your account first, because there are some things that you can look at ahead of time and start to almost kind of like self-help, you know, just so that you can plug it all in and then make some decisions. But, you know, we're here to help. We're here to help, you know, make sure that people are getting their questions answered and able to understand it as it relates to them. But some ideas are, first, to look at your account, and particularly if you have a lump sum plan, you know, how many units do you have and how much did you pay for them? And, you know, not individually, but just total in all, how much did you pay for that account? And jot that number down, and then do kind of like a line by line. If I were to roll this over today at 143, how much would that be? And if I needed to use them this academic year at the current payout value, how much would that be? And you've got the beginnings of your understanding. Now, somebody who has a custom monthly plan and maybe it's not paid in full, there's going to be a little bit more to the dynamic and understanding that. But I think a little bit of self-help on their side first, you know, jotting down your questions, kind of doing the math equation on their own, you know, certainly calling sooner, and, you know, so that you don't want to get to the, you know, September 11th and then, you know, be trying to get in on the phone queue and get a question answered before, you know, that time frame closes. But and checking the website, because we have a lot of FAQs that are also helping to kind of help people plug in the answers to the questions so that they can make a decision that makes the most sense for them. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, I have another question, Ellie. Will the number of units available to use annually increase above 150?
Because our maximum unit purchase, the maximum number of units you can have in your account is 600 units. So 150 is what's available right now. Because of the phase 2 and phase 3 incentives, that incentive could essentially put somebody over the 600 unit maximum. We're still kind of working out all of those details, but because it's looking like it will put account owners over 600 units, we will have to make an adjustment. So that could increase the maximum number of units that one person can have. And in doing that, we would end up making the adjustment, just like we did, because earlier, we had a maximum number of units that you could use that was 125. And then when we did the rebase process, that put some customers over the maximum of 500 units. Okay. So we had to increase our max. But like I said, we are still working on some of those details for phase 2 and phase 3. But if we're going to kind of follow the same route we took with the rebase, it's looking like that would be adjusted. Another thing to keep in mind, Ellie, is that you can use 150 units per academic year. Any of the units that you don't use for that academic year will roll over and be available with the next year's units. So you could essentially, let's say the student was going to school this fall. If you didn't use any of them this fall, Ellie could, or your student could essentially have 300 units to use next academic year because they would roll over.
Okay, and there was a part 2 to that question. So the first part was, will the number of GET units available annually increase above 150? And then if it does, staying with GET makes sense. If not, moving to DreamAhead and having increased cash makes sense. Do you agree?
Well, that's something to also keep in mind, because with DreamAhead, you can liquidate your entire account all at one time. It's up to you. You can use it all at once. With GET, we do have the maximum that you can use each academic year. That kind of helps you to budget, you know, what you're going to have from year to year, so that you're not using all of your funds that you've saved your first year, and then comes to junior or senior year, you're running out of your units. You know, it's completely up to you what you want to do, Ellie, but you know, it's kind of up to what best suits you and your family. Like I said, DreamAhead does allow you to liquidate the entire account. They don't have any restrictions on how long the funds can remain in the account, or or how much you can take out. At GET, we do have those restrictions, so it's kind of up to you.
Okay. And the only thing I would add to that is just it does depend on when the student was going to use it. Right. You know, like in the latter part of her question about, do we agree that moving it? And so as Diana was emphasizing, it does depend on when the student is planning on using it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Sergio is asking, if we take the incentive for phase 1 and currently have a Smart 529 somewhere else, can I transfer to them instead of the DreamAhead?
He can transfer it, but it's not part of the incentive. The Senate Bill 6087, the incentive for rollovers was directly from GET to DreamAhead. So if he chooses to transfer to another 529 plan, it's just a typical transfer at the current payout value. Is that right, Diana?
Actually, I'll correct you on that.
Okay.
So right now we're in this, we do have a temporary refund policy where you would get the $117.82 payout value for refunding your account, whether that be rolling to a different 529 plan or doing a refund directly payable to you. So you would get $117.82. We would remove the rebase units that we've added to your account, because essentially if you kept those rebase units, then we would pay out at the current payout value, as Jackie mentioned, it'll be 106.01 on August 1st, but right now it's 103.86. That refund policy is good through September 12th as well. So if you have any customers that are wanting to do any type of rollover to a different 529 plan, it's really important that we receive their their rollover request by September 12th. So we can get that processed. Yeah.
Okay. And Emily is asking if you could go over phase 2 of the incentive program again.
Sure. Phase 2 is essentially what we will do once phase 1 is done, is we will look at your average unit price for any units purchased prior to July 1st, 2015. If your average is higher than 117.82, we will take the difference between that and what you paid. So let's say essentially you're paying $153 per unit. We would take the difference between 153 and 117.82 and look at the number of units that you have and add additional units at the $113 current unit purchase price. One thing with lump sum units and accounts, it's very straightforward. If you have a custom monthly plan, what we will do is look at the rate when you opened your account. So if you opened your account at $101 per unit, then you wouldn't qualify. If you opened your account at the $151.18, that would we would look at that unit price and look at the total number of units that you have purchased through June 30th, 2015 on your custom monthly contract and determine how many units to add to your account.
Okay.
And that will be done once phase 1 is done. We're hoping to have it done before the end of the year, but you know, we have to still figure out programming and that kind of thing.
Okay. So I don't have any more participant questions. I'm just trying to see what other questions I might have. We've hit on a lot of these, actually. So if people call in and they can kind of give you their scenario, you know, their student's age, and you can kind of see how long that they've been buying units for and what they've accumulated. You're able to kind of help them, you know, see through some of their options with regard to, it might be better for someone who has a younger child, or it might be better to do something different if you have a student who's an older student, you know, getting closer to college. So would you say that probably participants' best action is to talk to get some numbers and get some guidance there from you directly?
I think, like what Jackie had mentioned earlier, doing some review of your account on your own first and foremost would be really helpful. Just, you can log into your account online, select the account you're wanting to review, click on account info, and that'll give you a recap of your account. Mm-hmm. You can also find your transaction history where you can see when your units were purchased. They have a great tool where you can download it into an Excel file. If there are some of your participants who are savvy with Excel, you can kind of do some sorting and adding and stuff. We are more than happy to help answer questions as best we can for everybody. The challenge we're having right now is that the conversations are taking a really long time because everybody is wanting to know. It's pretty complicated for some people, and they're really wanting to know what to do and what's best for them. We're unable to instruct people what they should or shouldn't do, but we can give them the facts. And we are able to also provide estimates for doing a rollover with the incentive to DreamAhead. We would be able to tell them how many units would qualify for the incentive, how many units would not qualify if they have some purchased after July 1st, 2015. And we can actually give them those figures. But just kind of trying to do some research on your own first and foremost would be really helpful. And that might give you a little bit of a general understanding of what you might want to do. And then speaking with us, we can kind of help with that as well. It's just that the wait times are pretty long right now. One thing I'd also like to add is we have brought in some temporary staff to help out, and we have people from other departments helping us as well in the contact center. So if anyone has sent us an email through GetInfo or sent a secure message, we will respond to those messages. We're working really hard to make sure every question is answered. But it can take, right now we're estimating up to about 7 business days for a response. So I would just request that people be really patient with that, because we will respond. I promise. We're going through everything, voicemails, emails, secure messages, but it might just take a little while to get your questions answered.
Okay. I have a few more questions that came in. This is following up on that phase 2 that you just talked more about. And phase 2 is guaranteed, right?
If their average unit price is higher than $117.82, we will make an adjustment. We will add additional units to their account. It depends on what their average unit price is, but phase 2 will definitely be happening.
Okay. And Rocio is asking, can we draw out from GET in this fall semester in August 1st and then roll over to DreamAhead in September? So I think, can we draw out from GET? So maybe withdraw or use GET units for the fall semester in August and then roll over to DreamAhead in September.
If he would like to do a distribution from the GET account first to use for education, you can do that. It would reduce the number of units. If you then decide to do the rollover to DreamAhead, then we would obviously those units that were used in a distribution would no longer be there for the incentive. So we would, if he requests to use 100 units or let's say 50 units August 1st, we would distribute 50 units from the account at the current payout value, which will be 10601. Whether we pay the school directly or do a reimbursement to the account owner, it's kind of up to them how they just decide to do that. Then if he wants to do a rollover to DreamAhead, he would submit the rollover request once the funds have been distributed from the account. And then the rollover will happen on the remaining units in the account at the unit cash value of 143 if they were purchased prior to July 1st, 2015.
Okay. Emily is asking, does GET or DreamAhead plan on having any public webinars that we could share with our clients or friends that would benefit from some additional education?
Yes, actually, we have currently 4, well, no, counting tomorrow, there's 5 in-person presentations that'll be done throughout the state. So tomorrow, there'll be one at the King County Library in North Bend at 6:30 in the evening. And then on August 13th, I'll be in the Tri-Cities, and it will be held at the ESB. I don't have room confirmation on that one yet, but it will go up on our website and on our social media page. We will be posting the events and the locations and the times. On August 21st, I'll be in Yakima. On August 27th, I'll be in Spokane. And on August 30th, we'll be doing that at here in Olympia at the ESD. It's the Educational Service District so it's for the location for all of the school districts in a particular region. And addresses will be included on the posts, both on our website calendar and on the Facebook page. We'll be posting where that is. So keep an eye out on it too. What I would say is continuously, to watch the events page or the outreach calendar on our website and the Facebook post, because as more are being added, they will be loaded there.
Okay. Sergio is asking please correct me if I'm wrong, per IRS rules, I can only transfer from one 529 to another custodial. Is the phase 1, let's see, is the phase 1, would that count against the IRS rule in phase 1?
If I understand correctly, you can do one rollover in a 12-month period. So if the student from GET to DreamAhead, if the student has 2 GET accounts, what we're doing is combining them and transferring one. Essentially, it ends up being one rollover, because if they did them separately, let's say they went on and let's say Sergio had 2 GET accounts and he did one first and then came back and did another one for that same student, that's considered 2 and there could be tax consequences. So when they start the rollover process, we will list if Sergio is the GET account owner, then we would show him all of the accounts that he has, and he would select, if the one student had more than one account, he would select that student, it would highlight them, and then we would process that as one rollover.
Okay, and then
Did that answer his question?
Yeah, you can throw something in the chat, Sergio, if you have follow-up to that. But there's another part to his question as well. So how long do I need to keep the money with DreamAhead before transferring to another 529 custodian?
You can do it once every 12 months. So as soon as when DreamAhead receives the funds, you have to wait another 12 months to do a rollover.
So not a calendar year, an actual 12-month period. Okay. Okay.
I think it's important to note here too, it's probably obvious, but just to make sure that we bring it up, is that the incentive, is this one-time option. So it's not repeated again next year. So when we're done with phase 1 on September 12th, you know, we will then move into phase 2, but phase 1 won't be offered again.
Okay. And I'm just going to throw the address. You said you don't know the room, but the ESD, it is Educational Service District is ESD. And I'll put the address in the chat box while I'm talking. There. It's in Pasco. It's about a mile from my house here. So, okay. And I have another question from Ellie. What are the potential annual fees for a cash preservation fund? Our sons would start college in September 2019 and would begin using their account funds at that time.
That's a great question. One thing that I would encourage you to do, Ellie, is on DreamAhead's website. If it's dreamahead.wa.gov. If you do a search in the search bar at the top of the page for fees, it will bring up a couple of different items to look at. One of them says, what are the fees? And it goes over the different fees that they charge, because they do have a different fee structure than we do.
Mm-hmm.
They have an annual maintenance fee of $35, and they bill that on a quarterly basis. It's $8.75 that will appear on each quarter statement. Now, I'm not sure how they will do that if you liquidate the funds right away after doing the rollover. I don't know if they'll just charge you $35 or if they're going to do it based on the length of time. If they're going to prorate it, I don't know. The asset management fees, from our understanding, what's noted on their website, is between 0.276% and 0.400% of all investment assets. They do have, let me go back. I'm actually on their website now. And again, I'm not quite sure how they would assess those fees to the accounts. I don't know if it would happen at the time you liquidate the funds or what, but there's another page that talks about different fees. It says, in addition to the variable investment fees for the base portfolios, that range from 0.056% to 0.180%, there are no additional recurring fees when you choose to manage your account online or receive statements. So I would really just encourage you to do a search on their website about their fees, and it goes over all of those with you. We're not 100% familiar with everything that they charge, but that's kind of a basic understanding that we have.
What's the exact site are you looking at? Because I'm on the site too. I'm looking at portfolio price and performance. Is that where you're looking?
Under how it works. What I just did a search for fees in the search bar on their website. If you go to dreamahead.wa.gov,
okay.
To the right it says search, and I just typed in fees there, and it gives you a handful of options to pick from where it's talking about fees.
Okay, I'm just posting these in the chat box. There's a couple of links there to take you to some of that information.
Yeah.
And then the last part of her question was, what are the risks for a money market fund through DreamAhead?
You know, I think that's a good question for DreamAhead. We're not really familiar with those. You know, I think even with what I was explaining with the fees that we know that they're charging, it's really important to understand how DreamAhead works before making the decision to do the rollovers as well, because it's a completely different program from GET. It is a 529 plan, so any of the earnings are, as you know, not taxable if it's used for higher education, but you know, we are very different programs. So they have different rules and guidelines, and so it's really important to make sure that you understand that before making a decision to move over.
And I would add, you know, typically money markets are very, very safe. They're pretty much on the bottom end of risk when you're looking at stocks, bonds, cash, money markets, so on. It's probably what you would, if you were wanting to just maintain to spend in the short term, that's probably where you might want to park some of your money, at least. I don't know that there's ever been a money market that's lost money, even during the financial crisis of '08. So they're quite safe. But that would be a good question for DreamAhead as well.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? We're getting close to the end of our hour. I don't see any more in our questions or chat. Any last opportunity for questions? And you could even unmute yourself and ask if you wanted to. So where might people go if they wanted to get more information, or to find out about events, things like that? Any parting thoughts from the two of you?
Well, on the finding out about events on the GET website, we have the there's a link for the outreach, or there's a calendar for outreach events. It's under Contact Us, that link, and just click on that and then review the calendar. Most of them, again, are set up in the month of August. I am loading more information as I get them confirmed. So the August 13th, 21, 27, and 30 should be loaded on that calendar by the end of today. But we did post on our social media pages about Spokane and tomorrow in North Bend. So those are already up on the website. If you have any suggestions on places that you might like to have us be, shoot us an email. Send it to Get Outreach, actually, not the Get Info box. That one is customer related, and that one, again, as Diana mentioned, can take up to 7 business days for a response. So the Get Outreach one, I can get to if it's related to just events and places to go. The only other thing I would add is if you are an employee working somewhere and you think this kind of presentation, not just doing, talking about the incentive piece, but certainly talking about both 529 plans, might be something that your workplace is interested in having, kind of like a lunch and learn. Also shoot an email to the Get Outreach box, which is getoutreach@wsac.wa.gov. And then I will give me some, contact information, and I will reach out to that employer. We've got a lot of those set up right now. So kind of like this webinar to answer questions, and public meetings. I've been doing a lot of employer presentations too, to bring information both about the GET program and DreamAhead and 529s in general as an educational element. So we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, I'm going to post that email. Can you repeat the email address one more time? I got most of it.
Yes, it's Get Outreach, all one word, at wsac.wa.gov. And yeah.
If they have account specific questions, they can email getinfo@wsac.wa.gov.
Yeah.
And that's the one that can take up to 7 business days. So I would just request that they be thorough in their questions. A lot of times we've had people ask questions very vague, and then we don't really know what they're saying. So then there's a lot of back and forth. So just try to be as specific as you can in your questions. That way we can get your response right away. I would also like, if you don't mind, I would also like to give a couple tips for people who are planning to do the rollover to DreamAhead. Is that okay?
Sure. And there is couple more questions, but go ahead. Tips.
Okay. One thing that we've been seeing is that people are calling to check on the status of their rollover. If they've submitted a rollover request, we have some people that will start a rollover and stop because they're not ready to make the decision, or they need to speak with their spouse, or they need some more questions answered before they finish. One thing they can do if they want to finish the rollover is they would log into their Get account online, click on the DreamAhead tab at the top of the page. You'll see the rollover that's been started, and it will say requested next to it. We are working on improving the language on that because that requested status will show up if they've even gone into the DreamAhead and registered. So they may not have even finished their rollover. So they'll have a green arrow next to it or a red X next to it. If they click the green arrow, they'll be able to finish up their rollover. If they click the red X, it will cancel it. So those are a couple things that we've been having to walk people through to make sure that they get it finished. You will get communication from Get and DreamAhead when you're doing the rollover. If it stays in a requested status for more than 48 hours, I would say that there might be an issue with it. One thing that DreamAhead does is they call it a KIP process. It's a verification process of your social security number, and it makes sure you are who you say you are. So we've had some people that could, you know, type the wrong social security number. A lot of, some of our customers have also, if one person is a Get account owner, they register a different person at DreamAhead, that will cause issues as well. They have to be the same person. So if your Get account is one person, you want to make sure that the DreamAhead account owner is the exact same person. That will alleviate any issues going forward as well. And like I said, if they're in that requested status for more than, I'd say 48 hours, I'd have them reach out to us so we can kind of see what's going on.
Okay.
That's it.
There's a couple more questions. We're nearing the 11:30 hour. I don't know how much more time Jackie and Diana have. Are you able to stay on to answer just a few more questions? Mm-hmm. And if people need to drop off, you know, thank you for attending. And this is being recorded, so we will post this up, I guess, on the Facebook page and maybe some other places. So keep an eye out for this. Cheryl is asking, what is the reason behind the Senate bill that prompted these changes?
Well, one of the things I mentioned earlier too was that it started with the reduction in tuition that passed in 2015. And so over this course of time, the last few years, you know, in addition to doing, you know, pricing readjustments, and then, you know, the legislature having us to review and plan and determine, and then ultimately there was a decision made in the opening of DreamAhead. One of the things was the funded status. So the funded status of the GET program had increased with the reduction in tuition. And so this past then legislative session, there was interest from legislators to take some of that reserve amount, not all of it, because again, that's there for the participants of the GET program. That's what stabilizes the guarantee, right? But to take some of that and provide that incentive for people who wanted to roll over to DreamAhead, particularly because it made the most sense for them to do that. It was a better option, like we've outlined in some of the other samplings of people who may be considering doing that. And then also the incentive for people who choose not to. So that's kind of the background on where that came from. And it was a legislative decision, and then the GET program, the committee, the staff here at the GET program have to administer or then proceed with the direction given by the legislature. So that's where this all kind of came into play.
Okay. Lynn is asking, will some events be taped and available after for those who can't attend an event? Like some of your public events?
Yeah, at this point, taping is not, I don't have that available. I have been working on that. I'm hopeful that we can get some stuff taped. But luckily we've got this one taped, and you know, as I'm able to do that, we again will be loading that on our website, on our calendar pages, and through our social media. So keep an eye out for them there. And we're hopeful that we can make that happen.
Is there a long-term plan for GET?
Yeah.
Just say keeping on, or?
Yeah, I mean, when we reopened this past this past fall, I mean, that was certainly what was during the 2 years that we were closed. That was part of the work that was being done, was whether or not reopening GET, you know, was still going to be a long-term opportunity for people. And so simply by the fact that we reopened answered the question. It is still available, still makes huge sense, especially for families who have really young children. And that is the long-term plan. There is no expectation, certainly at this point, to even think that there would not be a get option on the table. In fact, through the whole thing, the idea was to not just have get, there, but to open the door for the second option, because people prefer different things, and certainly the ages of their children will help them make different choices. And so now we're very fortunate to be one of those states that offers both types of 529 plans. So yeah, hope that helps.
Yep. And Cheryl is asking, if you do nothing, your account stays just as is, and we wait and see what happens with phase 3, correct?
That's correct. Possibly phase 2, depending on the average unit price, and possibly with phase 3, depending on our funded status. And there's no action that you have to take to be part of that. It will happen, and we'll notify our customers when it does.
Okay.
We will be sending out, we do have plans to send out several other we're going to send out a postcard, I believe August 10th, to all of the participants as well, to talk about, reminders about the incentives. And also we'll be sending out some other mass email communication. So I would encourage your participants and anyone listening to make sure to log into their accounts and update their mailing address, their email address if that's not up to date, their phone numbers, that kind of thing, so that we can make sure that we're getting a hold of everybody and that everybody's notified of these different options that could be available to them.
Okay. And the deadline is September 12th?
September 12th.
And that's the deadline for getting your action started, basically, right?
Yes, they have to have their rollover to DreamAhead submitted by September 12th.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't see any more questions. So maybe that's a good place to wrap it up. So thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
for everyone
doing this for everyone. Appreciate all the attendees as well. And if you have further questions, to contact Get or DreamAhead and get those answered. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.